staff meeting of August the 10th. We welcome everyone who's here. We look a little different. We have our mask on. We're following our own rules. We're not telling you to do things and we don't do them. But at the same time, I would like we're a little spread out, for our staff up here to introduce themselves, and then the ones out in the audience that did not sit up here, you'll hear their voices, but they are here representing you. So we'll start with you.
I'm Leslie Hervey, Assistant to the Clerk.
County Commissioner Denise Greenhouse.
Jeff Wood, County Administrator.
Thank you. And I am Stephanie Summerall Dumas, President of the Board of Commissioners. We have lots of things on our agenda for today. So we're just going to get started. We're going to get busy and start working. So one thing I just wanted to announce is I just got a text that the Senate just passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is anytime people can work together and have the same vision, the same goals, and kind of negotiate a little bit, and we made it happen, which will impact broadband and transportation and jobs, and I need to come closer probably, and the water system and transit. I'm just really happy about that, and I'm sure our commissioners are also. Okay, so we'll move to our first item on the agenda. Vice President Reese, would you like to introduce yourself, since I just said your name? But
You did a great introduction. Thank you very much.
Very good. So our first item on the agenda is update on COVID-19 health emergency in Hamilton County. Our Commissioner, Mr. Greg Kesterman, welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thanks for having me today for an update. Since I was last here a couple weeks ago, trends continue to go in the wrong direction. We're seeing more cases, more hospitalizations, and unfortunately, that's not great news, obviously.
Put the phone up a little, yeah.
Is that better?
Uh-huh.
Perfect. So what we are, may need help here. The clicker doesn't work. I don't know if that matters or if you got it? Perfect. All right, so far in Hamilton County, what we are seeing is about 3,400 active cases of COVID within our community. A month ago, this number was 1,700, so a lot more active cases of COVID across Hamilton County. I was showing for a little while the variants that we have in the county, but those numbers are significantly underreported. What we were told from the Ohio Department of Health is that we have about 36% of our cases are Delta variant, which is the predominant variant now in the United States. On the next slide, you can actually see the significant increase that we've experienced over the last couple of weeks. We were down to about 13 cases per day. We are now up to 145 cases per day of COVID-19. Contact tracing at this point, I believe I've shared in the past, but just to reiterate, is being still completed. Although this time around it's being completed by the Ohio Department of Health. They have a contractor that's doing this work. On the next slide here, I wanted to tie back in. So we've talked a lot about COVID within our community. The Centers for Disease Control has listed Hamilton County as a county of high incidence of COVID-19 or high spread. Just last week we were substantial spread, so we're continuing to trend in that wrong direction. Per the Centers for Disease Control, we have about 115 cases per 100,000 people, and our percent positivity right now per the CDC is 7.15. That's slightly off from the next slide that I'll show, that shows the calculated for the region from the Health Collaborative and their partners here locally. So here in our 14 county region, we are at 6.25% positivity. That keeps inching up, meaning each test that we complete, we're seeing more people show up positive. So first of all, I'd like to commend the population for going to get tested. One of the biggest tools that we have for slowing the spread of COVID is finding out who has COVID and then isolating them, making them stay away from the rest of the population. So we are finding COVID within the community. When you look at Hamilton County, so this is the 14 county region, when you look at Hamilton County, we are a little bit less. We're around 5.5% currently with percent positivity. Reproductive value continues to be high. Today we are at 1.50 for our reproductive number. This number continues to be, for the last month, over 1, which, if you recall, throughout the pandemic, if it's over 1, the pandemic essentially is getting bigger, it's spreading. And so that kind of mirrors the message that I've shared the last couple presentations to the commissioners. We're seeing more and more COVID in our community, and things aren't slowing down yet because we're just not seeing any of those trends go in the right direction. With regards to our hospitalizations, same thing happening here. For perspective, so we're at about 180 folks within our hospital systems today. For perspective, back in December, we were closer to 800. So we're nowhere close to where we were in December, but you can tell from the trend line on the diagram, we're just heading in the wrong direction. We're seeing ICUs increase, we're seeing hospitalizations increase, and once somebody makes it to the ICU, you're guaranteed almost to be on a ventilator, and so we're seeing those increase as well. This time around on the next slide, you can actually see, though, the age demographics for those in the hospital are decreasing. So we're seeing younger folks in the hospital. On the graph on the left, I know it's kind of a busy graph. This is from the Ohio Hospital Association. We are seeing an increase in those between 40 and 49, so the orangish line in the box, and 50 to 59, the bluish color. We are seeing significant increases in those two age graphs within our hospital systems. And you may recall from previous meetings, those happen to correlate nicely with those that are less vaccinated. We know those over the age of 60 are much more vaccinated as far as the overall population. So one major factor in driving who is ending up in the hospital. So let's shift now to the probably most important work my team is doing, and that's vaccinations. We know we have effective vaccinations, we know they work, and we know that 97% of people in the hospital have not been vaccinated. And so if you want to stay out of the hospital, the number one way to do so is get vaccinated. Here in Hamilton County, we have vaccinated 52.5% of our total population, or about 60% of those over the age of 12. So we've made a lot of progress. We continue on the next slide to make progress with each age group each week. So each of these lines is trending upward, and if you advance one more time on the next slide, we are also, so this is the percent change week after week. So over the last couple weeks, we are seeing a more steep line here. We're seeing more folks in those younger age groups getting vaccinated. We're nowhere close to where I'd like to see us. I'd like to see many more people running out and getting the vaccine, but I am happy to see more and more folks week after week going out and getting vaccinated. The next slide depicts just what I already mentioned, that over the age of 60, we have hit that threshold of 70% folks being vaccinated, and several age groups actually are more than 80%, which is great news. Just a reminder, we have lots of vaccination opportunities throughout Hamilton County. You can go to testandprotectcincy.com for a complete list of those locations. Any location with a blue dot on this map is a walk-up site. You don't need an appointment. You can just walk up and get vaccinated. So this is another great opportunity for our community. The last item that I'll share, there has been, since I last met with the commissioners, some updated guidance from the Ohio Department of Health with regards to masking. And they actually adjusted one metric that will help keep kids in school, which I think is a good thing. So this flow chart is available on our website as well as the State Department of Health's website. And on the next slide, you can actually see I'll show you a few pictures. This first picture is an unvaccinated child not wearing a mask next to a positive case of COVID-19. In this scenario, the person with COVID always has to isolate. So that child in the next three pictures will isolate every time. The student that's a close contact, because they were not vaccinated and because they were not masked, still have to quarantine for the recommended length of time. In the next picture, just like last year, about mid-year, the state offered an opportunity if two students were masked, both the COVID positive case and the close contact could stay in school. And that was a great tool for keeping our kids in our classroom this past year. A new opportunity this year deals with vaccinated students. So even though that student in the bottom left of the new picture doesn't have a mask on, they've been vaccinated. Because they're close to an individual that's positive for COVID, they can stay in school as well. The biggest change for the Ohio Department of Health It was on that last picture, which gives parents an opportunity to send their kids to school with a mask on. In a school that strongly recommends masks, if you send your child to school with a mask on, even if the positive case does not have a mask on, the child with the close contact with the mask on can stay in school. They have to keep that mask on for 14 days and monitor for symptoms, but they get to stay in school. So it's another opportunity to keep our kids in the classroom. Those are all the slides I have prepared, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Could you expand a little bit on the booster shots that people have been calling me about for the vaccine?
So there's lots of talk. We know the pharmaceutical companies are exploring and doing testing, but at this point, there's no FDA-approved or emergency use authorized booster shot. So nothing available at this point. There is some talk that come January, February, there might be some opportunities.
Okay. I will open it up for my colleagues for any questions or comments. Vice President Reese.
Thank you. Thank you, Health Commissioner Kesterman. First, I want to say again, thank you for all of your work and the coordination. And I know you don't like to do any bragging, but I'll do it for you. Certainly the feedback that we've been getting as our county has done a very good job of coordinating and bringing the private places that you can go with public health places, with coordinating the various health departments and everybody kind of on the same page with the same goal. So I just want to thank you for your work with that.
Thank you very much. I'll take that back to my team as well.
Yes, doing an excellent job. And it's definitely all hands on deck. All hands on deck, so I want to thank you for that. Wanted to go to your slide that deals with the demographics.
Sure.
And wanted to see what, I know you kind of ran through the presentation, but I wanted to do a deeper dive on that component to see where we are in need of more. I don't know if we have the zip codes, but where we need the most, or is it just throughout the county now? And I know that we had done some targeting with the 513 relief bus, which you have been helping and advising where to go on that, along with the mobile van units to have a full mobile operation. So could you talk about these demographics and have we made improvements, or where are the areas that we need to kind of step up or do better?
Certainly. So we actually now, thanks to the Ohio Department of Health, do have access to census level data that we're able to review. And so my team is actually using that data to help drive where we're taking our mobile units throughout the county. We are hitting the jurisdictions, the census tracts actually, that have the lowest vaccination rates, and moving the locations as necessary. In addition, the Ohio Department of Health, actually the governor last week, I think on Friday, had a press conference and talked about some initiatives and incentive programs, including $100 giveaways that they're doing in Columbus. And they have seen significant increases in vaccination rates associated with a $100 gift card. And we found out just yesterday that the state is making additional funding available, including here in Hamilton County, to help drive some incentive programs here locally. So we will most likely in the next couple weeks try and roll out some additional incentive programs here within the county and use those in those targeted zip codes to help change some vaccination rates.
Thank you. You got me to my next question, which is incentives, and I wanted to talk about that to the board. I was talking to our county administrator about that. I did get a chance to see that data, and I think Isom, last name is Danny Isom, I think it is, Commissioner Driehaus, you probably know him. But he did some data work for the Health Collaborative here and in Columbus and sent it to me. And what we saw was Columbus jumped with the number of people getting vaccinations with the $100. And he also went a step further to talk about not $100 where it directs you where to shop. It was $100 gift Visa cards that they could use, if you want to shop at Kroger's or if you want to shop at Target or what have you. You weren't limited to, no one wants you have to go here. And those numbers jumped, and they kind of surpassed us for a minute. And so one of the things, I'm glad to hear that we're going to do those, and I would like to see us, if there needs to be, help, I even talked to our administrator, if there was an opportunity, if we're trying to get 20,000 people, for example, or 10,000 people, to have that funding put aside. That's what this relief funding is for. And so one of the things I was going to ask you, I noticed in your slide the locations that we're going right now. And I'm wondering, the $100, they kind of targeted those areas that were a little more reluctant, you know, and I think you've been working on sending the bus in those areas. So we want to make sure that those incentives are tied to the bus in those areas, like you said, that are the hardest to convince, wherever those zip codes are. I know they're all over, but can you maybe talk a little bit about, I know you said we're going to have incentives. Will those incentives be available for all of our mobile units? I know, because with us, we got the whole county. But the mobile unit and the bus, is that something that would be available? Is there an earmark for what that is? Or do we need to look at internally, how do we, also help toward that? Because we're looking at something like, if you have 10,000 people, we're looking at $1 million,
Right.
which we could do. And the governor did $1 million for one person, but we're going to be spreading it out to get more people vaccinated. So can you talk a little bit more about that? How would that work? Will that also be available with the 513 relief bus in conjunction with the other mobile units that are out there?
Yeah, so I've had several conversations with Dr. Mashika Roberts, who is Columbus Public Health's health commissioner. And the way they have currently set up their program, they're primarily using a couple physical locations, and they don't shift those locations too much. And they've done so that they can kind of get word of mouth that those are the locations where you can get those gift cards. And then they've also done so that they can have appropriate security at those locations. So right now, our vaccine sites merely have vaccine and a few staff and syringes and just some basic stuff. But as we transition towards a more incentive model, we'll have a decent amount of gift card value on site. So security will be something we'll have to think about. I think there is an opportunity to bring these to the mobile bus, whether it be the 513 bus or the mobiles operated by my office. But I think we need to have a couple discussions just to make sure security is thought of. But certainly something we could explore.
Yep. Thank you. And I just want to say to our fellow colleagues, that's something that I think we should be moving to. If Columbus has already done it, they figured it out. But I also think it needs to be mobile because, as you said, Commissioner, in your past reports to us, and I've had a chance to be out there in the streets too, these are the toughest to convince. And when you get one or two, it's not like, you might have a 30-minute conversation to convince them to do it. I will have to say I was in Forest Park. Our 513 relief bus was in Forest Park this weekend as one of the locations, and there was a 12-year-old who told her mother, I want to do this.
That's awesome.
And was leading her mother into the bus to get, so it was mother-daughter together. And I was like, wow, this young lady is going to be a major leader. This young lady was very determined and confident and said, Mom, I want to do this. I want us to do it together. So I said, man, I got to let Commissioner Kesterman know about this. He would be smiling from ear to ear. Well, that's good. This is good to know. I think the incentive model is necessary based on, like you said, even with this variant out there, our cases are going up. People have asked this question, though. If you had, because I think there's some misinformation. If you got the shot, they're thinking you'll never be able to catch COVID. Can you maybe just talk about that to those who are watching with that? Because they say, oh, someone got a shot and they got diagnosed with COVID, but they did recover, they didn't go to hospital, and they are living. So can you maybe talk about that?
Yep, so I think one important point to that is on day one when the vaccine became available, we heard statistics about how effective the vaccine was, and we heard 94-95% effectiveness. What that means is we're pretty sure that 5 or 6 people out of 100 are still going to get COVID with the vaccine. We know that, and that's way more effective than any flu shot that's ever been invented. That's a great statistic, and this is a very effective vaccine. Now, the good news is, though, with all 100 people that got the vaccine in that 100 folks that I just talked about, we believe that significant illness won't happen in any of them. People tend not to get sick once they've been vaccinated. The vaccine is very effective at preventing significant illness. You heard me say during the presentation that those in the hospital, 97% of them have not been vaccinated at all. So that's really testament to how powerful the treatment that we have available to us really truly is.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Commissioner, for your report as always. And thank you to the work of yourself and your team, ongoing work, what I know is challenging, especially right now, as we see trend lines heading in the wrong direction. So not for lack of trying to get people vaccinated on your behalf. So I also want to look at that, the slide that had the trend lines by age. There was one line I noted going down as opposed to up. Just back one. So I can't see that far. What is that age demographic?
65 to 69, and then Bridget, if you'd go back, actually go to the next 2 slides forward from here. The other way. One more time. There you go. Thank you. So 65 to 69 represents just to the left of the red bar, that dark purplish bar. So that age group has been heavily vaccinated. More than 80, it looks like 84% of that population has been vaccinated, which is most likely attributed to why that line is trending down. Most of the population that wants it has gotten it. Not to say more folks won't get it, but
Okay, so we're actually doing very well in that age group.
we are, yep.
And so we're seeing less.
That's
uptake on
exactly it.
Okay, that's very helpful to know. And so by way of that then, are you seeing the majority of folks that are not getting vaccinated? And again, I can't see that far, because I'm so far away at this point because we're so spread out. What age groups are we having the most difficulty with in getting the vaccine?
You know, really, it's just slow all around. So anyone under the age of 50, it's been slow uptake. We've actually, with all of our mobile units, we're staffed appropriately so that if somebody wants to walk up and not get a vaccine, we're sitting there waiting for information opportunities. So our team is out there trying to share information. We know that folks may not want it on the first visit to our van. So it's an opportunity to talk with a clinician. You've heard me say many a times, put down your social media and talk to your doctor, talk to a friend who's gotten the vaccine and get real information. There's so much misinformation on social media. And so we're trying to create that opportunity, that linkage to a clinician, because not everyone in our community has a primary care physician or a doctor that they trust. So here's another opportunity for them to talk with a trusted clinician and hopefully get the right information.
Great, thank you. And I did note, I went on your website and saw all the different locations for vaccine with the vans, including Belterra and Winton Wood, and you're out in Sharonwood, an apartment complex, and at libraries. So again, thank you for doing that work. I have one last question. I wonder if all 3 of us have been asked this. I know I have, related to our masking policy here in the building. And so throughout the pandemic, we have always followed the guidance of Hamilton County Public Health. And I know you are also following or watching closely the guidance from the CDC. And so, and we've got a state law at play here too. So could you help, for the public's knowledge, help us better understand the reason for the strong recommendation that we have in our buildings that people wear masks in public areas, and why that's not a mandate?
So here in Ohio, recently there was a passage of Senate Bill 22, which essentially prevented mandates from the Ohio Department of Health and the governor. And so in Ohio, I would not anticipate any new mandates associated with maskings or business closures, but rather strong public health recommendations based on what is happening. Ohio often will align pretty closely with the Centers for Disease Control, and so moving forward, I would expect that as well. Right now, because we see so much spread of COVID within our community, the strong recommendation is in line with what the Centers for Disease Control is recommending for any community that has substantial or high spread of COVID.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. And thank you, Greg, for all that you do. Of course, at this point, with all the numbers going the wrong way, it's by any means necessary as we talk about incentives. I was on a great webinar with the White House as it relates to incentives, and they had even brought up the possibility of not only providing incentives to the individuals, but maybe the businesses that refer those people to get the vaccination. So Jeff and I are kind of talking about that. And so, Jeff, I was just wondering if you could just clarify at the podium as it relates to our staff and what the expectation is of staff to wear masks, because I think some of our staff coming on the elevator are a little confused, and then the sign says we want you to wear, but staff is a little different. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, so similar to what Commissioner Kesterman had just indicated, that we have a the board has put out and the administration has sent to all of its departments a message that masks in county buildings and departments are strongly recommended. So in any county operation, we are asking folks to wear masks. It stops short, as Commissioner Kesterman said and as Commissioner Dreehouse said, it stops short of that mandate, but it is a strong recommendation that people who are in our buildings, vaccinated or unvaccinated, wear masks while they are in this building, and that would apply to customers coming into the building as well.
And so as far as staff, no different?
Yes, staff, absolutely. Staff, no different. Staff, customers, et cetera. Yes.
Okay, there's some confusion, but thank you.
You're welcome.
For clarifying that.
Yeah, so we've sent messages out to department heads, to all county employees under the Board of County Commissioners as well. So everyone who works, especially anyone in the county, but especially those who work for the board and all the board departments should have that information and should be aware of it at this point in time. So we'll watch, and if there's some tightening down of that we need to do, we can certainly do it.
Thank you, appreciate it. And as we look at incentives, I just wanted to indicate that the board and also administration is looking at the incentives for internally for our staff. We talk a lot about going outside and doing incentives, which we definitely need to do it, but we want to do, there are some staff here that have not been vaccinated, so including at least starting with internal incentives. We can do it at the same time, really. So thank you very much.
Madam President?
Yes,
Can we ask that because these numbers are, since 2 weeks ago, I guess was when we last met, 14 days ago, and Commissioner Kesterman is showing that these numbers aren't waiting around, they're jumping up fast. Is there possible, you and Commissioner Dreehouse and myself, I think we all are looking for ways to incentivize. I think you raised a good point about internally what can be done. If there was some way maybe we could direct the administration to get something to us quickly on working with Commissioner Kesterman, what's available from the state, what we have available, and what can be done internally, what can be done externally. That might be helpful if we can get something that we can look at and move quickly, as, like you said, these numbers are jumping on us every day. So if we could get some kind of report on a recommendation to us, what can be done on the incentive side, both internally from a business and from the customer base, while working with what's available at the state and what we have available. And then we could maybe look at moving forward if we have to, if it requires us to make a vote or move it forward, we'd have something in front of us that we can try to move forward. Because I know, like you said, we're trying to throw everything at this as quickly as possible. So I didn't know if that might be something we could get or direct administration to get to your office and get to all of us.
Well, Jeff and I, we meet every Monday, and the discussion was, to get some kind of agreement or understanding from each commissioner on, when we look at incentives, how much are we talking about that we may want to incentivize people with, and so what we can afford, and like you say, we can afford. And my understanding, as of Monday, they are working feverishly to get a proposal together about how we do it, how we record it, how we make sure we're doing it effectively. And I don't know if you want to speak?
Yeah, I think first ARP purchase will be a segue for me to motor on back to the podium here.
Okay.
But yeah, so based on what I'm hearing here today, and I talked with Commission President Summer Dumas, and actually all three of your offices about this concept of incentives, both internally and externally. So especially honing in on this conversation today, we will get something to the board very, very quickly here, a recommendation on what we, given the resources we have within the ARP, and what may be available through additional programming at the state. And we'll, of course, work with Commissioner Kesterman as well and give the board a recommendation on both an internal incentive, which you remember we were considering at one time an internal incentive. It just happened to overlap with the state's Vax-A-Million program, so we put a pause on that at the time. But given where our rates are and the stagnation in those vaccination rates and the increase in the variant, I think it's time certainly to revisit that. So happy to pull something together, and it shouldn't take long. Within the next week, we can get the board something on an execution strategy for incentives.
Thank you, Madam President. I just know Labor Day's coming up, and we just want to, I know when those holidays come, we always are concerned about trying to do that. So thank you. I'm glad we're moving forward to get us something so that we can act quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's move to our next item, Cages update. Raj Shundur, Cages Administrator. Hello. Long time no see.
Oh, good afternoon,
Yeah,
Commissioners.
good afternoon.
My name is Raj Chundur, and I manage the Cincinnati Area Geographic Information System, CAGES for short. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you with an overview of what CAGES does. I'll do a quick review and open it up for any questions you may have. All right, so anybody who has worked in the land development and the utility infrastructure area within Hamilton County knows that CAGES does maps, right? But we do more than that. If you ever wondered, how do citizens request services? How does property development happen here? How are they approved? How are plans reviewed? How do departments coordinate with each other? How does permits get issued and inspections are tracked? All those daily business that our departments do. How does that happen? And
Put the mic a little bit more on you and right into the microphone.
what am I doing here?
Point
Bridget?
to the computer.
So, all those questions, CAGES provides a technology platform for departments to do their daily work, right? So we've been providing this technology platform of doing digital maps since 1986, long before Google was even in place. And most importantly, we've been doing since 1995, providing solutions for all the questions that I had posed to you earlier, right? We provide solutions that are related to permitting, licensing, inspections, code enforcement for the departments to use and do their daily work. And CAGES has become nationally recognized.
Excuse me, if you can stay in the mic, because our interpreter is really having difficulty.
sorry about
So just, I know it's, stay in there, and don't look at the screen.
I will next time for. All right, I'll give that a shot.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So how does CAGES provide these solutions to the departments? One of the key things that differentiates us from any other community that does mapping is that they use it on a daily basis to do their work. It becomes part of the DNA of working in the system, and that provides great opportunities for departments to collaborate, not only within their own work environment, but between departments and cross jurisdictions, right? That becomes important as a shared service. And another important thing is CAGES helps the department to think through the whole process from start to finish. How does the customer interact with the agencies? How is the information tracked? And then how do they provide the services at the end of the day? So those are some of the key differentiators. So what is CAGES? It is a regional consortium that was established in 1986 by a shared agreement between City of Cincinnati and Hamilton County And why was it established? The reason being that they found that there was lack of coordination, there's a lot of repetitive work going on, and they felt that at the time, mapping or GIS information systems could be a good tool to bring all of these things together. So it is funded by the city of Cincinnati and Hamilton County as a 50-50% shared service. And the funding source, as I explained there, with the Hamilton County Engineers, the Metropolitan Sewer District, and the Hamilton County General Fund is provided from the county. And from Cincinnati, it comes from Waterworks, the Stormwater Management District, and the City Infrastructure Fund. So as you can see from the funding source, the bottom line is we are in the business of providing land development and infrastructure management technology to these departments. So anything that you may think of as infrastructure, which is roadways, sewer, water, property-based information, all of them are tracked within the CAGES technology platform, and the departments work in that system daily on an ongoing basis. Okay. So this is a sampling of all the various agencies that use CAGES on a daily basis, quite a number of them, close to over 20 agencies in Hamilton County and Cincinnati. But we also have provisions for various jurisdictions within Hamilton County to participate. So we have examples like Anderson Township, Sycamore, Blue Ash, Montgomery. They all use the system. And we also have universities like Xavier, UC, Hamilton County Development Company. All of them use that. And we also have private companies like the Electrical Inspection, IBI. They are mandated to use the CAGES system. So it's a pretty comprehensive technology platform for agencies dealing with land and infrastructure. So next question is why CAGES, right? So one of the things we look for in government is how do we increase our efficiency? How do we save money? And importantly, how do we promote growth and quality of life, right? So that's the governing principle on getting a technology platform that will enable our agencies to meet those goals. And this defines some of the key things that the system helps, right? So one other thing is, if I am at a particular location, right, how do I know what has been going on, what happened in the past, what is happening now, and what's planned for the future? So take, for example, a roadway, right? It could have been constructed many years ago. Is there any planned projects currently happening now? Or is any repaving planned in the future, right? How do we manage all those things? This system helps with that. And I like the next one, which was by one of the Hamilton County administrators in '95, that I want to make sure coordination happens and no one drops the ball. That is the key, right? That's what creates efficiency. So in that CAGES platform, vision is to drive towards that. So how do we do that is through enabling collaboration, communication, and coordination between agencies using the technology platform. So what is the payoff? It acts as a comprehensive one-stop center for anything to do with land and infrastructure, faster delivery, enabling the departments to respond effectively, reduced cost, and improved access to government and information. So how do we get there? So these are some of the foundations, and geography plays a very important role. And what is important for the agencies as well is to make decisions, you have to be sure that the data is accurate and it's timely, right? And with people working in the CAGES system on a daily basis, you get the confidence that you can make decisions that is accurate and timely. So for example, a plan reviewer, right, wants to approve a design. He has to look at water, he has to look at sewer, he has to look at the zoning. So all that is managed on a daily, real-time basis, so then the plan reviewer is confident, everything checks out, I'm going to approve the plan. So that's one of the keys of maintaining accurate data for decision-making as well. So some of the fundamentals like addressing, streets, parcels, infrastructure like sewer, water, all of them are managed within the system. And also our 911 dispatch, Hamilton County and Cincinnati, get this CAGES data on a daily basis, and all the dispatching, when someone calls the location, the underlying system feeds that as well. So it plays a critical role even for, life and safety issues. I'll give you a sampling of key layers, streets, property parcels, topography, addresses. So for example, property managing the parcels is a very important function conducted by the Hamilton County engineers, right? That's the DNA for land development. They work within a system and manage it on a daily basis. Streets are managed by the Hamilton County Planning and Development. They keep up to date along with County 911. So these are some of the core examples from a mapping perspective. Then I talked about, how do the departments actually deliver all these services like permitting or licenses and so on. So CAGES helps the departments design these workflows and help them work and track in the system. So I'll give you a sampling of various agencies and the kind of stuff that happens. For example, planning and development. They do planning work, improvement plans, zoning, and various building permits are all issued through the system. And a few more examples related to transportation, inspections, public safety, and so on. So the range is very broad, as you can see, but the important thing is it's a shared system, and that's what enables coordination with people working together. So I want to give you a quick sampling of various projects. I try to keep it focused on the information is not only available for internal staff, but to enable transparency, most of the information is available to the public with just a click on the internet map site, right? So one such great tool is the CAGES Online, where if you can move to the next slide, Bridget. So with just one click, you can get a variety of information, right, from who owns the property to what kind of land development can happen with zoning and so on. So this is another cool tool where anywhere in the county, for those who participate in CAGES, with just one click, you can see anything that's been tracked there in the past, current, and in the future, related to permitting, code enforcement, whatever you name it. If it's tagged in CAGES system, within seconds you get the information, right? So, and that's the power of using technology to get information without having to do research like days on end. Another example of code enforcement across the region. So I talked about this comprehensive property report, right? You can drill down and look at inspections that have happened in detail. When the inspectors go to the field, you can see what they cited, any violations, and if it's a permit, what kind of approval is going through between the various departments. All that is available with just a one click there for the public as well. Another great feature is that it's not only used for looking up research, but many firms like architect firms, engineering firms, use the GIS data to provide plans and do development work as well. So another series of programs I want to highlight is the customer service request system, which enables citizens to request services in many different jurisdictions. Cincinnati, Blue Ash, Sycamore Township, who participates in those things, where you can report a storm drainage issue, or the next slide, you can report fire hydrants that are out of service. So fire departments across the county use this, as well as citizens to report damaged fire hydrants. That's some of the examples of how these things can be used. And what this one does is, when someone reports a fire hydrant issue, a notification goes automatically to the Hamilton County Stormwater District, and they send inspectors out to the field and respond back when it's fixed. So we also have, if you go back one slide, Bridget. So we also have reporting built into the system that helps agencies track their efficiencies, how they're doing, and various metrics as well as part of solutions provided by CAGES. One more project that I really wanted to highlight to the commissioners is a roadway construction coordination. This was done a few years ago at the behest of then Commissioner Fortune. So it's kind of a special project even for CAGES, because he asked this question at that time. I had my road wonderfully paved just 10 days ago, and then later it is cut up Now, why is that? How can we prevent it? That was the question he posed to all the agencies. And CAGES, working with our departments like the county engineers, the Duke Energy, Cincinnati Transportation, so on, developed a construction coordination system where utilities like MSD, Waterworks, Duke Energy, and so on, and county engineers, they can report ahead of time, 3-4 years, register it within the CAGES system, and then coordinate with each other so that the life of the pavement is preserved and you don't have to have a beautifully paved street get cut up immediately, right? And in fact, City of Cincinnati went ahead and codified this in the Cincinnati Municipal Code that all utilities are required to register a minimum 3 years ahead of time to coordinate these kind of utility activities. So you can see already what kind of benefits working in a shared environment brings to the table, right? I kind of wanted to highlight that project to you all. So this is a quick example of how coordination happens, and this information is also available to the public. They can click on the map and say, okay, my street is going to be repaved 2 years from now or 3 years from now. So you can also have a lot of analysis, planning, and allocation happen. This is an example from Cincinnati's capital acceleration program, which is also used by other agencies that need to, which shows how the investment in infrastructure, is distributed across their neighborhoods as well. So with that said, I wanted to talk to you also what is in the future for the departments in the CAGES technology platform. So as I mentioned in the previous slides, we've been doing this since 80s and the 90s, and some of the systems, are getting old. So we are modernizing those systems, and currently, one of the biggest projects is with our planning and development and soil and water conservation district to upgrade our permitting system to the new web-based interface. And the key benefits are everything is going to be completely online, right from the customer applying for any kind of a permit. They don't have to walk into the office if they don't need to. They can apply online, pay for it online. They can choose to have plan reviews done electronically and more enhanced field inspections as well. With some of the cool features being that, as the inspector goes out, does the inspection, they can notify the next person through a text saying, hey, I'm going to be there in the next half hour or so. So provide a lot of customer service. And also continue to enhance coordination between agencies and the public, right? So this system is already live for, the small scale for the last 3-4 years. And one of the big benefits for the customer as well is they have this action center where they can see that once they apply it online, are there any payments that have been waiting for them to pay up? Are there any requests from the agencies like submitting documents again? So it gives them the quick snapshot, but also be able to track more of their work they're doing with the agencies in an effective manner. So these are all new things that is going to set us apart and move us to the next line in efficiency and coordination between agencies. So hopefully that was a very quick overview for you all. And again, thank you for the presentation. And any questions you may have, happy to answer them.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and it was quick, but it was, you included everything I'm sure that we needed to know. I know CAGES, as you were saying, has been around forever, and there have been many other upgrades. I won't make a lot of comments because we have a lot more business to move forward, but I thank you for coming in. And one thing that really struck me, I would say under one of the first slides you said, and we don't have to talk about it now, but it says CAGES is managed by the City of Cincinnati and is a division within ETS department. And so it kind of reminds me how MSD is managed by the City of Cincinnati, and that was a little confusing for me, especially since it's a 50-50 split on the money. So we'll talk another time. I'm sure I'll talk to Jeff about it, but that stuck out for me. So I'll open it up if there are any comments or questions as we move forward.
Thank you, Madam President, and I share that same thing too on the first slide. But yeah, a couple things I just think, I just want to, a lot is in here. 1986, I think I was at Withrow High School coming in. 1995, and you've admitted that we've got Google now, we've got new technology. and maybe not the answer today, but I would like to get more information. The cost should be coming down, because now, people could get on their phone and get some of this stuff from a mapping standpoint. And then the other thing I am interested in is some of the data saying what has been the success rate, like how many people have used it, not since 1986 or 95, but how many people have used it in the last year, the last 2 years, what has the user gone up or down? The other thing is where, you talked about automation. I want to make sure that it's utilized by small businesses now as well, as there are services that can be used there. And then you mentioned, you said we've got something new, and then you brought the slide up, and then you said, well, we've been doing it for 3 to 4 years. So is this something that's already been doing for 3 or 4 years, or is this something that is new 2021, getting ready to be launched? I guess that was, a little confused by that.
So let me explain that. So, as you know, Cages provides this technology platform, right? And technology continues to evolve and new methods of delivery come into play, right? So from a process perspective, right, how do departments do permitting? That, improves but doesn't change, right? Basically, it's someone asking to do, let's say, building a deck at the back of the home, right? They have to apply for a permit, and that process usually does not change that much. But the technology on how we do about it does change. So, for example, in the past, right, we dealt with technology in terms of them having to come to the office, but the computer, you type in everything in the office. But now, in the last maybe 10 years, with the improvement of the internet, that thing can change to people don't have to walk into the office, they can do it online. And that's what I meant by changing our technology platform to provide services that we used to do in a different way with modern technologies. And that's a project that we're doing. The
Gotcha.
underlying process continues to improve, but doesn't change that much. But the way it is done with technology does change. And that's the project that will move to the next level of trying to deliver everything through web-based, internet-based models.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that whatever we're doing, it's current. Technology has evolved. I don't know, Cages was like the Google. It was the in thing, it was the new thing. It's no longer. We're even doing Google to get rental assistance. So we're looking for technology that can move quickly, reduce cost, and has a platform that is current and compatible with the smartphone. And you may have that, but, I know not today, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking at, and I've asked the administration to look at. I mean, we are making changes every day, technology-wise. Just like this meeting, we're on Zoom and we're on YouTube. At the same time, we're here live. So we want to look at those kind of things. So what was in 95, and even in this presentation, I remember when I was at the State House and we would have people come and do, the reports to us. They would dust off PowerPoints because they do it every year, so they would dust it off. And I said, wait a minute, is this a current thing, or is this something you done dust off and just added two new slides to? So when I saw that 1995, that the county administrator said this was a great thing, and it probably was then. It was very innovative. And then you also have the city manager in 95. We done had a lot of city managers, a lot of county administrators. I need to know what the new people are saying in 2021. And what will be in the next 5-10 years. So we'd love to get more information in a report style. How many people use it? How is it relevant now, today? Is it still current? And what are the people that have to use it now are saying about this, and if there's other changes? And then how do we drive the cost down? Because technology now it's a lot of free technology out there. So anyway, those are my comments, Madam President, and look forward to getting something maybe in writing that will allow me to do more reading and catch up on things. Thank you.
Commissioner Reese, if I can just add one more to your good point. All the projects I showed you are completely internet-based. All you need is a smartphone, and all that I showed you is all modern applications that anybody can access them with their smartphone, right? So We've been keeping up with technology. But there are areas where we need to continue to move. So it's a constant evolution, and we've been, like I said, Cages is nationally recognized for being at the forefront of providing these cutting-edge solutions too. So rest assured, we're always looking ahead, and we'll keep looking ahead as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse.
Just very briefly, just want to say thank you for the presentation. I know that our staff uses CAGIS heavily when it comes to some of the issues that we have to decide upon related to permitting and zoning and those kinds of things. So thank you for that collaboration. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our administrator, I think, wanted to make a comment. Don't go anywhere. I wanted to just thank you for coming again. Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. And this is partly a comment, partly a question, and I won't belabor the time now, but maybe just a note for a follow-up, Raj, that we can have a little bit later on. But and all three commissioners just kind of hit on that, but from an administration perspective, I just wanted to emphasize that, and Raj said it, I think, in his very first slide, that a lot of people, the public, looks at CAGIS and they see a map. And a map, and yes, CAGIS does provide maps, but it's really so much more than that from a workflow perspective. From the county's perspective and from my perspective as an administrator, it's really key to ensuring that we have coordinated government and that we have coordinated efforts of all of our departments. The development process is a great example, making sure that all of the different entities that are involved with development, whether it's the sewer district, planning and development, zoning, buildings, water, soil and water, Duke Energy, all of those entities, that we're all coordinated and we're all using the same platform, and even some of the jurisdictions out in the county. So really, technology is a huge part, obviously, and Commissioner Reese brought up the need to keep evolving with technology, but I'm not a real technology person, but from my perspective, that's why we got Raj, but from my perspective, the real spirit of CAGIS is the coordination that's behind it, because that's what drives the improvement from the public's perspective, making sure that, like Raj said, when someone goes out and cuts or has a street paved, that it doesn't get cut up the next day, making sure that when someone approves a building permit, that it already has the other approvals behind it so that it's not held up because, soil and water or floodplain didn't get to it in time. So it's that coordination that's really the spirit and the behind-the-scenes aspect of CAGIS that I think is really the magic behind it. And so this kind of leads into my question, or just my area of follow-up for Raj, is in the past what we've seen, and this has happened, as Commissioner Reese said, looking at the slides, this goes back to 86 and 95, and we've pulled everyone together, and that by we, I mean the Board of County Commissioners, the county administrator, city council, city manager, pulled everyone together, all these departments that are involved in all these functions, and said, you will coordinate. And we expect CAGIS to pull their part by doing what they need to do in terms of keeping the technology relevant and keeping it constantly upgraded so departments aren't working with older type platforms. But we've said to all these departments, you will coordinate. Now, occasionally, over time, we have departments, sometimes coordinating's hard, right? You rather just go off and do your own thing. So occasionally, we'll have departments that start to back off from that and say, well, I want to go buy this off-the-shelf program over here. I want to do something else. And CAGIS is only as good as the information that is put into it. So if a department pulls out or is doing their own thing, then suddenly that package becomes less useful to everyone else. So not something I want to put you on the spot on right now, Raj, but I would like to follow up just to make sure to get a pulse and get a sense as to where we are from a coordination perspective. And if there's any work that the board or myself or even city council and the manager have to do in terms of kind of roping people back into the system, that we do that. Because that's how it's most beneficial, right, is to make sure that everybody's using it. And that it is, and again, where we rely on CAGIS is to make sure that we are doing what is needed to keep the technology relevant and at the forefront. So that's what's kept us, this as a leading edge project and product for a long time. So Raj, I'll follow up with you on that, but I just wanted to emphasize that today to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we have one other item before we have 3 executive sessions this afternoon, but our last item for discussion is an update on SORTA changes regarding Metro and CPS. Darrell Haley, CEO, is here to talk about some of the changes. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam President, County Commissioners. Thank you for inviting me here to talk to you this afternoon. I've got a presentation here. It's got a lot of information in it. I'll go through the information. I'll be happy to take any questions after the presentation. So I'll give you some background. 1 in 3 CPS high school students currently receive unrestricted bus passes. So the passes that the high school students, 7th through 12th graders get, there is a restricted pass and an unrestricted pass. The restricted pass are for the extra service buses. The unrestricted passes are for our regular service buses. So about 33% of high school students already use our regular service bus. 1 in 6, about 16% of the 7th and 8th graders were riding in the past our regular service buses. Nearly all the students with bus passes attending non-CPS high schools, SCPA, and Euler in the past have rode regular bus service. About 4.3% of all students in the past have had to transfer more than once, meaning take 3 buses to get from their origin or destination. The CPS walking maximum distance, and this is something that CPS has set along with the state, has been 1.2 miles to school or to a bus stop. The average travel time on extra service was about 55 minutes. I'll give you a little of the contract overview. The current contract was signed in 2017. And it was approved by both of our boards, SORTA and CPS board, with a term of 5 years, which ends on June 30th, and it has 2 one-year options. The contract states, and I really need to be really clear about this, SORTA does not run school service, nor do we run service for any particular entity. It is illegal for us to do that. All of our service is open door, open to the public. We are not allowed to run school service. It's illegal for us to do that. Our contract states that we shall transport eligible students during the school year. We'll provide upon SORTA's regular coaches over SORTA's regular routes and according to SORTA's regular schedule. It also states that we'll work with CPS to develop an efficient routing scheme. However, all route decisions shall be made by SORTA, and the amount of schedules service plan will be limited by the number of vehicles and the number of operators that SORTA has. And every year we get together with CPS's transportation department to plan out all of this service that we roll out. CPS then provides us with the school start times and the addresses of the students and the schools that the students go to and the time those students start as we plan out this mass transit service that we roll out each year. Throughout the academic year of 2021, CPS and SORTA discussed the increasing number of no-shows. It is not a secret. We have struggled with hiring operators. There is a labor issue in our country, and it is affecting every transit agency as well as almost every other business in the country. We have struggled to hire operators, and to give you a little background, last school year, in April and in May, each one of those months, we missed between 300 and 400 extra service trips, which means those extra service trips, those are the students that's the only bus that they can catch to get to and from their destination. So when we miss one of those trips, there is not another bus that student can get on to get to school or get home from school without actually paying, because those bus passes are only good on those buses. So we started the conversation of how do we not leave those students at the bus stop to make sure that they can get to school and they can get home. So that's where the plan for putting the CPS students on our regular service, which 33% of them already ride our regular service, to make sure that if they miss the bus or if a bus doesn't show because we're short operators, there is another bus coming that they can get on, get to school. One of the other benefits to that is if I'm a student and I'm struggling with math, I can now stay after school, talk to my teacher, and not have to rush to that bus to get home. There is another bus that I can catch to get home. And of course, baseball practice, football practice, chess club, whatever the other things that we're going through. So what we did, we held 4 planning sessions with CPS Transportation Department. on July 6th, the 12th, the 14th, the 29th. We also held a session with their communications department where we were working on a joint statement to go out to the public, as well as we were putting a communication package together to communicate with the parents about what the new service was going to be. The purpose of this was to reduce the average travel time for the students to get to and from school, to provide multiple trip options for each of the students, to increase the bus frequency for students compared to the extra service, to eliminate the trips that required more than one transfer, and to overall improve the students' travel experience to and from school. In September, there is an Ohio law that's coming out that a high school student can't take more than 2 buses to school. I'll talk a little bit about that later on. About 4% of the students in the past have had to take 3 buses to school. The new plan, there will be no students that have to take more than 2 buses to school.
Let me interject for a minute. So I need help from my colleagues. When you came up and you set the format of sort of how you're going to do this, review it, then we can ask questions. And so, and if we don't do it that way, I'm thinking we probably won't get through it.
Feel free to interrupt me.
Every page that you have presented, I have questions, and I don't want to interject because we have, like I said, 3 executive sessions coming up. So I'm just wondering, oh goodness, I need help because it's so much in here that there are questions about. I'm looking at the 33% of the high school students receive unrestricted regular. That's only a third of the children. And my question is, well, how many now with this change will it impact? I'm not asking the question, but I'm just saying. So if you guys want to go with doing it that way and just let him go through, and then we ask questions at the end, we can do it that way.
I'm okay either way.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just, I think maybe with the agenda and having gone so much with other stuff, it's like, and I don't want to rush this. This is so important. People are waiting to hear what you have to say. And so me talking, stop your presentation, basically. But I'm just saying, we can go on and try to go through the packet, and whatever other questions we have, we can do at a later date. But I think about the people that are watching, that are waiting for us to ask the question that they are unable to ask. So I'm going to stop talking, let you go through, and then just kind of sit on my hands while I'm listening, and so just go on with it. You guys didn't help me, though. So, but, okay, so, yeah, so where are we?
Also, I'm on the...
No, don't slow down.
Okay, the summary of proposed changes.
Yeah.
We're happy to receive emails. You can go to our website. Our email's on our website. Parents, the public are welcome to ask us questions. We'll answer all of those questions. The summary of the proposed changes, what we actually did is CPS provided us with every student, their home address, the school they were going to, and what time the school started. We actually mapped out every single solitary student to make sure they could get from their home to their school with 2 trips or less for every student. So we have covered every student that CPS has given us their name and address for to make sure they could get to school on public transportation.
Every grade, 7 through 12?
7 through 12, every student.
Sorry, I wasn't supposed to go here.
That's okay.
That's okay, yeah.
And in order to do that, we actually added 2 additional crosstown routes so that we could reduce their travel time to get to and from school. We made 9 changes to the existing route alignments. We have 13 routes that received additional frequency. So, for instance, Wanted Hills, within a half an hour, there will be 30 buses that show up at Wanted Hills to move students. One of the other benefits to this is with the extra service, they're all getting on one bus going together. So a bus, one of the ways we reduce the amount of travel time, a bus may start in this community, pick students up from this community, travel to another community to pick students up, and then it may stop at 3 or 4 different schools along the way. So that really extended the travel time for the students. So by using our regular service, they can pick one of those options that's a much more direct trip from their home to school. We made running time adjustments on 12 routes. These are our express routes. This has nothing to do with the CPS students getting to and from school, but our express routes, because of COVID and so many people working from home, our buses are only carrying about 3.8 passengers per trip. So we made some adjustments along all of our express routes to make sure that flow was much better for those commuters. So the next slide shows some of the improvements that will come from this plan. Previously, 4.3% of students required 2 transfers or three buses to get to school. Under this plan, 100% of the students will have 1 or 2 buses to get to and from their destination. Under the previous plan, the average walk from their home to the bus stop was 0.42 miles. We have reduced that to 0.35 miles. Under the old plan, the average walk from the bus stop to school was greater than 200 feet, or 0.35 miles. Under this plan, all walks to school from the bus stop to their actual school is less than 200 feet. And the average travel time on an extra service bus previously was about 55 minutes. Under the new plan, it has been reduced by 10 minutes to 45 minutes. So we talk about the benefits of the new service plan, reduced student travel time. One of the other things that CPS asked for during this process was to allow the students to have, the 9th through 12th graders, to have access to the entire system later in the day, up until 9:30 at night. They also asked for the students to have access to the system on Saturday as well, for football practice, baseball practice, to go to a job. I know recently they have said they don't want the students to have extended access to the system. So that's one of the conversations we'll be having with the CPS board a little later today, because they asked for the extended time, but then they've also said they're not interested in the extended time. Also, I want to make sure I say this, if not once, maybe twice. Our bus system is safe. We run a really good system here in Hamilton County, and our system is safe. Our bus drivers are mothers, their fathers, their uncles, their aunts. They care for the community. I'm sure you've seen in the paper, our operators pulling over. If they see a small kid on the side of the road, they bring them on our buses. Our buses are safe places. They call the police. Our buses are safe. I want to make sure I get a chance to say that. Also, it will familiarize new users to the entire Metro Transit system. So the implementation to this, we were together with CPS. We were going to roll out a very robust marketing communications plan. As I said, CPS even came down to Sorter, and we sat down and worked through what the communication was going to be, both to the public and to the students. It's CPS's responsibility to communicate with their students and the parents. I'm not sure why at this point in time CPS hasn't sent the communications of what routes that the students will take to and from school, but we did work out that plan with CPS. We had our public meeting beginning August the 5th. All of the information on how students get to and from school is on our website. We are participating in all of the school's orientations. It is something that we do every year. We have 15 or 20 of our employees actually go to the schools. This year, we have computers, and if a student or a parent has a question about how their kid gets to school, what buses they catch, where they catch those buses, we're going through all of that with the parents and the students at the schools. And I believe one of these pages in here actually shows each of the schools when we'll be there to talk to the parents. The schedule for when we're at each of these schools was set by CPS, and we are just participating, and it is something that we do every year. One of the other challenges that we had, one of the other challenges that we've had through this is what parents have done is they've gone onto our system to plan their child's trip from home to school. And in order to correctly plan that trip from home to school, you have to change the date until when school starts. Because if you go and look at the service that we run this summer, it will give you a very different picture than if you put August 19th in when we're rolling out all of this additional service. So a lot of what you've heard is it's going to take my child 2 hours to get to school because they're using the service model that we have today when school is not in, but when you put that date, that future date in, it shows you the actual trip time based on the additional service that we're rolling out on August the 15th. So you have to put the date, so you go in, you put your address in, you put your child's school in, and then you put the date, and then you put the time that the child will start school, and then it will give you the options of what buses to catch. And another thing, a benefit to this, it will give you several options where extra service, pretty much there's only one option. You could have more than one bus that comes through your neighborhood and other options that you could take.
Madam President, I'm sorry. I do want to go back. I think that this presentation would have been great before we signed off on a contract was signed. And we have gotten, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I can tell you, I got a lot of people. So what I think will be good, back to what you were saying, unless we're going to finish up in the next 5 minutes, it would be great for us to be able to ask the question, and then you can go to the slide that answers that question. Because I'm telling you, I've got, my Facebook page had over 3,000 people. And I was shocked about it. I didn't know anything about it. This presentation would have been good last month before it happened. But it has happened now, and we've got some questions, and I'd like to get down to the bottom of it, if possible, Madam President, and then maybe he could go to the slide that addresses whatever the questions that we may have. Because I'm just saying, I know, because each slide is about 5 minutes that you're on, and we got to get down to why did this happen?
I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, so let's get to the questions, if we could.
That you just asked.
Yeah, because I don't want to get into the details of go online and go to this, and it's 5 minutes, it's only going to be 2 minutes and all that. That would have been great for the presentation. We've had you on, even on Zoom, if you had presented that to us prior to, but now that you've gotten a mess going, and I just like to get to the questions. I don't want to go another 20 minutes on how to go online and find a bus route.
I'd like to answer that question that you just asked. So in the middle of July, we were actually sitting down with CPS's communications department to put out a joint statement and the communication to the parents. We were asked by CPS not to put it out until after they had an opportunity to talk to the board. But all of that was drawn up.
Yeah, no, I got you, but let me, before we go, I want to stop at that point. We had a levy that changed the dynamics of SORTA.
You're correct.
Which made not the city have the most appointments, had us. Now, I wasn't here to do the appointments, but when they start calling our offices and saying the county now, we're not talking about CPS. We're talking about we have the most board members. We had a tax levy down that you done put more money out of people's pockets. And every time I see you, you're cutting services. And we can't do that. I can't go in and got money for 5 dresses, and I get there, they only got 2 dresses. I'm not gonna pay them for 5. I'm only gonna pay them for 2. So we're excited to get to the questions because our phones is ringing off the hook, and they're not asking about bus routes. They're asking about this contract that was signed that we knew nothing about. And we found out, and at least I know I found out in the media, and all of a sudden everybody was mad. And me and President Dumas, I think we're the only 2 at that time. Commissioner Driehaus was out of town that day, and we were hit by surprise. So we wanted to have you here to ask some questions. We're not here for the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
And I'd like to open it up. I know Madam President got a lot of questions, but my phones has been ringing off the hook, and I don't like to be blindsided with something I supported. But we can't pay for 5 dresses, and you only delivering 2 dresses.
Understand.
So, Madam President, I'm sorry to interrupt there. I know people are anxious to get to the questions, and maybe he can go to the slide after each question might address it.
And I appreciate what you're saying, because that's really what I said earlier, but I looked that you only have like four pages left, and I think we can run through that, just out of respect of you, putting it together. And the orientation schedule, that's next. I don't think we really need to hear about that. And you showed some pictures of the orientation at Walnut Hills, and so that you were doing the orientation. So that's 2 pages. And then we go to the next one, if we could, The
Sure.
rollout is August the 19th through September the 3rd. If you want to just elaborate on that, and then that's about it. Go
So
ahead.
I wanted you guys to understand that during the rollout, our entire staff, the planning staff, the street supervisors, the division managers will have staff at all transfer points to make sure that kids understand, or if they have questions, we'll be out in the community with Metro gear on. So if a student at a transfer point is not sure of what bus to catch next, that there'll be a Metro person there to help them make those decisions as they learn the system.
Okay, very good. And I think your next to the last page is about, you did a summary of social media and what people have given you feedback about.
Yes.
I don't know if it's specifically about the change or not.
It's the service change feedback
Okay.
that we
In
got.
general, or this service change?
This service
Okay,
change.
okay. So we can take a look at that probably at a later date.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had at the end summary of comments received for the meeting. If you just want to go through that.
Sure. So
real quick,
81% of the
that's
comments we got were about travel time for the students to get to and from school. But again, if you go in and you put in the school date, you know, not today's date, what we found for most parents were, they were looking at the service as it is today and seeing 2 hours versus if you look at it after school starts, it's nowhere near 2 hours. So it's just a communication issue for parents to understand. Look at the start of the school date because the service will be different there. 75% of the comments we got had something to do with Wanted Hills High School. We've done 3 orientation sessions already at Wanted Hills High School to talk to all of the parents. 72% of the comments were safety related, and 40% were comments where they were unclear about how to use the transit app.
Well, I see the last comment was about the sorter board, and it kind of brings up with what Vice President Reese was saying, and that we, with the new levy passing, that we have more Hamilton County representatives on there. We have 8 Hamilton County and 5 City of Cincinnati. And just without even naming names, was there a vote for this change from the board?
So the service changes, the board doesn't actually vote on. What the board does is they accept public comment. So whenever we do a service change, it isn't just for this. Anytime we do a service change, if it's a major service change, we take those comments back to our board, and our board accepts those comments. They don't approve them. They accept the comments. This current contract we're in with CPS, this is the 5th year of a 5-year contract, and this is what we do every year of this contract. And for instance, May 30th, we rolled out phase 1 of Reinventing Metro. So we have it. Unlike a lot of transit agencies around the world and most transit agencies in our region, they've cut service. We have not cut service. We have been running 100% of our pre-COVID service since July of last year. In May of this year, we added additional service to the community.
Well, and you've also added additional programming, and you and I have talked about whether or not we might have been a little aggressive on the programming considering the level of staffing, but I'm gonna pass it on. But I wanted to ask a question. When you were saying the board accepted the comments, so what is there, I mean,
They haven't yet. We had a board meeting this morning, committee meeting this morning, which we presented the comments to them. They will be doing that at the board meeting next week.
the comments as it relates to 73% in public having safety issues, which is major, and so anyway.
A lot of this is based on communication because parents, when they went in and looked at the trip planning as it stands today, they got misinformation because you have to put in the school start time to really see what the trip really is.
So the clarity of the authority of the board is a little confusing for me, and so I was reading it, and it's not real clear on the website, so maybe we, not now, need some clarity of their authority. And one of the reasons why when we had the levy, we made sure we put in that agreement that we would have more county people on it. But what is their authority? I'm just going to throw it
Madam
out. So,
President, can I just weigh in on that point very quickly? There are county appointees, city appointees. The board did not know about this They found out the same way you found out, the same way I found out, the same way all of us found out, which is through the press. So I just want to be clear and not so much defend the board, but clarify that those board members did not know about this plan until it hit the press. And so they too are trying to, figure out a way forward, given the circumstances we're in now. So I just want
Correct.
to be clear on that point.
And that's important for clarity because, as you say, having the predominant number of people on there, and then it's like, what just happened? So, Vice President Reese, you had some, and then I'll come back with you. You had some questions or
Yes.
comments. And
Thank you, Madam President. I think you set the tone when you asked the question about, which is what I was going to ask as well, did the board know about this? I think we're backwards. We run out here and we say we got all these boards. And then when they get on the board, they don't have no authority. So we've got this tax levy money running out here that we only won by 625 votes. That's almost 50% of the people wasn't for it, 50% was for it. They got hit with COVID, and we made a lot of promises, and that's why I want to make sure on these levies that we're being honest. I don't think we overdid, I think we got to be honest. And I think that if we have a board, there's no sense of having a board if they ain't got no power. We don't want no board over there just window dressing, and then we're not checking no boxes. So one, we want to look at the administrator and sort of to look at, we need to rework the power of the board. Because we can't go out here telling citizens that we got citizen control and citizens input and citizen this and that, and find out that all we're doing is window dressing. I don't do window dressing. We did get a letter from the chair of the board, I was reading through it, so somebody knew about something. But anyway, we got some letter here, and I think it's backwards to just be there. I'm going to accept some comments, but I can't do nothing about the comments. That's not what I'm interested in. That's not a relationship I want to have. And then we are held accountable. We're accountable to the voters.
So our board,
So wait, let me finish. So with that being said, you having a comment section after the contract was signed, am I correct, or was that before the contract?
the contract was signed 4 years ago. This is a 5-year contract. This is the last year of that 5-year contract. This is not a new contract.
Okay, so what comments are you accepting if it was already done? If it was already done, why are people upset?
Whenever we have a public meeting, this is a federal law. Whenever we have a public meeting, those comments from that public meeting has to go back to our board. Now, our board then has the ability to talk through those public comments and direct us to do something different than we're recommending. But we have to take the public comments back to our board so the board knows what the public has said. And again, they then have the ability to direct us to do something different.
Okay, so let's take a step back. So the board, I'm going to go back to Commissioner Dreehouse, she said the board didn't know anything about it, they didn't, to their defense. You're saying that with these comments, that these parents, and I even got bus drivers, parents and bus drivers who were saying this, and let me say I am a product of the Cincinnati Public Schools. I rode the bus, so I'm not on here talking about something I don't know. You're saying that if this board comes back and says, you know what, we're seeing these comments, no, we want to do a new contract to continue service like we've been doing with Cincinnati Public Schools, you're saying that's possible?
If the board directs us to do so, yes, but what that would mean is a complete redesign of our entire system. It could not happen overnight, and because of the labor challenges that we have, it would come with a significant cut to our regular service, which would create challenges for people to get to work, for people to get to health care. And with that service cut, it would create challenges for the CPS students to get to school, because remember, 33% of the CPS students already ride our regular service. And because of the operator challenge that we have, the operator shortage that we have, what it would mean is cuts in service in all of our service in the community. So it would create challenges for the entire community. because we
But
can't-
you already making cuts. I mean, I know you're giving me the gloom and doom and which, because you got your reinvent Metro. Well, reinvent did not mean cutting, it meant expanding in my mind.
Yes.
So my question outside of, so number one, the board can go against what you recommended. That's what you just said.
Yes.
So that's number one. So board do got some power. Number two, my thing was, we just coming back to school. We got the mask, we got mask, no mask, we got vaccine, Delta's jumping through the roof. We've got kids going to school, parents concerned, and in the midst of that, you make a major change. Could they, and to me, I think this is something that should be planned out a year. So in other words, this year we would keep what we got, and then start planning whatever change that would be possible. Because this is a lot of changes that parents got to deal with. So if you're saying that you couldn't even extend a year and do proper planning and partnerships
So
to phase it in?
because of the challenges with the labor shortage that we're facing, again,
Can you expand on what the labor shortage is? Where were you and where are you now as far as staff?
we were at 500 operators.
Uh-huh.
We're now down, and it changes on a daily basis. We're now down to about 470 operators. The other thing we're facing because of the COVID situation is our absenteeism rate is somewhere between 17 and 20%. So you're dealing with a shortage of operators and increased absenteeism rate due to illness. So you don't have enough operators to run the service. And again, I'll remind you all that in April and May, and I'm not talking about all trips, I'm talking about just the extra service trips, we miss between 300 and 400 trips a month. In May, I believe, overall in the system, we missed about 1,700 trips in May, meaning the bus didn't show up because we have an operator shortage. And this is not unique to SORTA. This is something that's facing transit and many industries across the country.
I remember, it was told to me on your website about the drivers you're trying to recruit, and they get paid for training even if they don't have the CDL, but the rate of pay is $16.
So-
And I'm just wondering how comparable that is to other, drivers in other areas. I mean, to come in and take that responsibility for $16. So can you just address that?
It is comparable to where other transit systems have been. We are in the middle of contracts negotiations, so I really can't get into any details in contracts negotiations, but when this contract is done, the starting pay will be significantly higher.
What about now, though, the ones you're trying to recruit to fill the spots? Is it because of the union is not making more, you can't give the new ones more?
It's negotiated with our union.
Okay. So, let me just go to Commissioner Dreehouse.
Right, no, thank you, and I too, we have questions, I'm interested in everybody else's questions as well. I share the frustration that we just went through a levy cycle, expanded more regional service, and now have this situation. I understand that some of that is related to the bus driver shortage. I've actually talked to you a couple times about that. And ways to recruit, ways to pay better, ways to bring in larger classes, the whole thing. But the fact of the matter, that hasn't come to fruition yet. While we may have some in the pipeline,
Yes.
we're not where we need to be right now, as are we're facing this all throughout the county, this worker shortage. And so while I want to be sensitive to that, this is a really challenging situation because we're talking about kids and we're talking about students, and I just think that the communications could have been better. I know there were conversations between CPS and SORTA internally with staff. I don't think that was made clear at all when this was rolled out. I think this kind of appeared out of the blue. The SORTA board members that we appointed, I talked to some of them after this was rolled out and said, what just happened? And they did not know what had just happened. And so it has and then you got the CPS board also not being in the loop, created a huge problem, and the most important people that weren't in the loop were the parents and the students. And so here we are trying to figure out a way forward, which is frankly where I want to be. You know, we've got a blame game going on. I mean, you know, CPS did this, sort of did that. While I think we need to sort through that and have a better process in the future, I'm most interested in how we're going to solve this and make sure that these kids get a safe way to get to school. And so I know there's a meeting this afternoon
Yes.
with some CPS board members, some SORTA board members. I hope that's an opportunity to figure this out and move something forward. I'm not involved in those conversations to the extent that I know what's being talked about, but I sure do hope that the blaming gets cast to the side and that we are all in there in the spirit of moving something forward that's good for these students. So that's kind of where I sit, Madam President. I appreciate the timeline here because it's been very confusing to follow, and the two sides are saying very different things. So I think this is valuable, but at this point in time, we're running out of time, you know, because school's going to start here soon. So that's all I have.
Thank you, and I think as a board, I'm sure as a board, we have indicated our disapproval about how this process took place and how it's going to impact the children and family communities in general, and that some advance notice or some before all of this happened. And I know you're going to be meeting with CPS, and so we'll keep our ear to the ground as it relates to what their decision is. But I think it's very clear that we have some concerns about how all this took place and the change itself. That's all I have, and we'll,
I got something else. I'm sorry. I mean, my thing is, my job is to bring with the people who can't get an appointment to talk to you directly. And I'm going to be clear that since we started, and this is nothing personal, because, you know, we like each other personally, but this is dealing with the taxpayers were told that we're going to get X, Y, and Z. We're spending more money. We made some promises, and we know COVID came in on some of these things, but it just can't be every time we're cutting because we're not giving the people a refund. We're not giving them a break. And nor are we talking about that. We're not coming back and say, you know what, we can't do what we said we're going to do. We're going to, you know, give the people back 50% or whatever, just throwing that out there. And parents are already just so nervous. And when I think about getting on the bus at a young age, and I think about my nieces who are 11, about to be 12, they're going to the junior high school and the high school are together now. When I go back to my alma mater, it's, you know, the junior high and the high school are together. So we're looking at 6th and 7th graders, we're talking 12, 13 years old. And you're asking them to get on buses with grown folks and be able to, and certainly we believe our buses are safe, but all the time that's still very scary. And being able to have to transfer, be on time, it's bad enough to be, they're just now at 6th grade or 7th grade, they're just passing classes. And they got to learn in the same building to get from one class to another class because they come out of elementary where they were in one class. So now you got a child that we're saying, make sure you got your mask on. I'm praying to God you don't catch COVID. Now, pass from this class to that class. Now you got a locker. You didn't have a locker before. And by the way, you got to do grown folks work. You got to get on a bus like somebody who's going to a job. You got to be there at this time and then transfer and then get on this one and get to class. That is a lot. And especially without any type of transition period. You know, the school is starting now and we don't have no transition. So it feels like for parents, they got blindsided.
Understand.
So I wanted to bring that out, and I've got people, Community Action Agency, they got a CDL program. I started when I was at the state representative, and we got money for that. Maybe there's some partnerships and those kind of things that can help us out. We need less people, and I'm a marketer. I'm all for marketing, but we need less marketing, less advertising, and more now to operations. We don't need you at Walnut Hills and Withrow and these other schools passing out brochures about the bus route. We need more people on the bus, driving the bus, to get people to the schools. So I wanted to highlight that, and I just wanted to let you know that I've gotten lots of concern. And a lot of these schools, A lot of them are rival schools. You got them in the same area. And it's hard. You got Withrow going to have to get on the bus with maybe Don Community Schools in the same area, maybe with Schroeder in the same area, on one bus with people that's coming in and out of work. That's a tough situation. So, and I remember the reason we got these, whatever type of routes, whatever you want to call them, they weren't called, you said you're not legally extra service, because we were having issues down at Government Square. That's why we came with the extra services. So let's don't get on a merry-go-round to the same problem that, you know, we had in the 80s and the 90s. And they started having extra service so people wouldn't go to Government Square, they could go straight to these other areas. And then my last comment is, we can't keep showing we're opening up these new facilities and ribbon cuttings and all that. Get to the basics. The basics is we're transporting people to work, we're transferring people to the hospital, we're transporting people to school. And those are the things that I just wanted to highlight, the information that I've received from people, and I hope that this can be resolved. And please, come to us before you make the decision so we can get the input and we can hear from the people. We have run that type of operation, Madam President. Even in our own thing, we had our budget, the ARP funds. We didn't just run out, here it is. We had to hear from the people. Then we made a decision. And we're hoping that our agencies that we work with will operate in the same manner. So thank you.
All right, thank you all very much.
you.
And I'd also like to say, I also was born and raised in Cincinnati and grew up in Cincinnati and on the bus. So I want to assure you, I completely understand what you're saying. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Okay, we're going to move right along. We have 3 executive sessions. I'd like to say before I make the motion for the executive sessions that at 5 o'clock today, anybody that's watching or in the building here on Fountain Square, there will be a celebration for Duke Reagan, who is our silver medalist from the Olympics. And so we all, whoever chooses to be a part of that, that'll start at 5 today. So everyone is welcome. You're welcome to come.
Madam President, I want to thank you for that, you and Councilwoman Jan Michelle, because it takes a lot of discipline, and we always hear the bad thing when somebody's not doing something. And I saw on TV all these other areas welcoming people back who had won bronze medals, and they had the parades, and they were riding on fire trucks, they was at the airport. So I'm happy that this young man, for winning a silver medal, he's number 2 in the world, that we are able to come down and recognize him as he represented our country. So thank you.
And there are 2 other, Rose Lavelle, who does not live here now, she lives in Maryland, and then Thompson, who's a volleyball player, does not live here. Actually, she plays for the Socialist Soviet team or something, but she's from Cincinnati, so we congratulate them. But Mr. Reagan lives here now, so we thank all of you. Charlie, is it okay if I do one motion for all 3, as long as I read all 3 of them?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion for the executive session pursuant to RC Section 121-22G3 to conduct a conference with an attorney to discuss litigation, and also a motion for the executive session pursuant, item 5, pursuant to RC 121.22G2 to consider property acquisition, and item 6, executive session pursuant to RC Section 121.22G4 regarding collective bargaining. That's a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Thank you.